8 weeks ago, I got to think about a certain subject, and I decided to start writing about it. And up until last night, this is what I did. The subject is some reflections on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and evening worship services. We are admonished not to forsake our own assembling together as the custom of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day drawing nigh. Hebrews 10:25. Here the writer of Hebrews refers to a specific day, that is, as you see the day drawing nigh. This passage speaks of our own assembling together. The day that we can see drawing near would be the day of our assembly, or the first day of the week. Thus we see in Hebrews 10:25, it is imperative, that is, it's a command, that we not forsake the first day of the week, assembly, in that we can exhort one another to keep the assembly of the saved, stirring up one another with love and good works. It is preeminently the Lord's Day. Sunday was the day of Jesus' resurrection and the day of his ascension. It was the day upon which the Christians in Troas came together to break bread. It was the day the churches in Galatia and Corinthians were to lay by in store to the treasure of the church in 1 Corinthians 16:1 and 2. So you can sum it up this way. The first day of the week requires that all the saved in a local congregation be present. What about Sunday afternoon and evening assemblies? Well, the opportunities to build up God's kingdom through the Sunday afternoon assembly are, and it should be, obvious. We need every service of the saints because of our weakness as Christians and need to be strengthened. That's Hebrews 10:24 through 25. Here, Hebrews 3:12 through 13. Beware, brethren, lest there be any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But exhort one another while we call it day, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Remember Romans 12:1 and 2. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. So let's think about it. Lord, can I serve you 3 hours out of 168 hours? Or how about 3 hours out of 7 days? Lord, is that reasonable? No one, therefore, can properly estimate the loss of willingly absenting himself from the meeting of his brethren. The apostles earnestly exhorted the Hebrews not to neglect the duty and privilege of meeting with their brethren in public and social worship. These were all sanctioned by the apostles with all the force and obligation of a divine ordinance. Actually, we show our love by obedience. John 14:15. We should attend every service of the church because we need to set our priorities right. Matthew 6:33. We should attend every service because we want to set an example before others, especially our own children. 1 Timothy 4:12, Titus 2:7, and Matthew 5:14 and 16. You might think about it this way. If you don't have a sense of family, you probably ought to do some soul searching. I say this because reading Acts 2:42 through 47, you get the feeling that the early Jerusalem church simply loved to be together. They were truly a family. If you want to build a sense of family in your own life and in the church, you simply must have time together. I believe that our or any congregation is stronger because of our afternoon services. Our sense of family is stronger compared to Sunday morning. The slower pace, invaluable time for catching up with each other's lives. I think most of you know that a number of our members stay between services for lunch, between the morning and afternoon services. Sounds a lot like Acts 2. I've attended a couple of these. And if you haven't lived, if you haven't tried some of Ron Herman's greens, is there circumstances in which a Christian is justified in forsaking the assembly? The answer has to be yes. You and I both know that a Christian can reach an age or stage when he or she no longer is able to participate in most of the things that they once enjoyed. Being providentially hindered would include things like sickness, confinement, physical limitation, high waters blocking the road, etc. These Christians, hindered as noted, that cannot attend Sunday or Wednesday services are not guilty of transgression. If the first day of the week had come when Paul and Silas were in the Philippian jail, would it have been permissible for them to forsake the assembly? And of course, the common answer is yes. If a Christian is lawfully unable to attend the Sunday morning worship assembly, he is exempt. And exclusion. Also, it's not necessary to carry the elements to him so he can eat the Lord's Supper. And exclusion is an exclusion. Can a child of God present himself before the Lord on Sunday morning, but because of incapacity cannot return on Sunday or Wednesday evening or every night of a gospel meeting or any other special program? He or she is not to feel guilty. But note what I'm saying. We are talking about a person incapacitated in some manner. While Sunday worship is special, the devout Christian will seek every opportunity to enrich his soul by worship and Bible study, prayer, and association with his fellow saints. Now, all this brings me to this problem that affects the Cold Harbor Road congregation, and in reality, the entire brotherhood, and that is drifting. Christians never quit God on a single day. The way that most Christians lose their faith is through drifting. What I mean by drifting? Drifting is a slow removal of ourselves from the influence of God in his people. It is slow because drifting away from God does not usually set off alarm bells that a sudden faith crisis might do. Drifting is a way to abandon our faith that will not make us feel guilty. It can begin with missing the afternoon services or the Wednesday night services without reason. You can recognize those who are drifting away rather easily. They're the ones who are replacing their spiritual priorities with worldly ones. For example, being with the church slowly becomes secondary to pursuing worldly activities and people. Some allow company, friends, or relatives to hinder their assembling. Devotional time with God is slowly replaced by the more urgent things. Serving others is relegated to times when there is nothing else to do. Now, the saddest reality of all this is that the sense of our demise in Christ is ever so slow that it is usually not even noticed. It is then too late. The truth is that most never return. Oh yes, they will think about it. They plan to someday, but they enjoy the pleasures of sin. It's hard to leave the pig pen of sin. If you think about it, the sin that lies behind drifting is dishonesty. We refuse to be honest in acknowledging that the pull of the world, and what John refers to is the lust of the physical pleasure, the lust of everything we see, and pride in our possessions, rather than search for God and His kingdom. Drifting can be reversed, but it requires an assessment of the direction of our spiritual lives and come to God on His terms and not ours. That is why remaining faithful requires a daily commitment to keeping the Lord and His church a priority, lest we drift away. If you're drifting, or you need prayers of the brethren, we ask now that you come forward as we stand and sing.